we are. Happy Monday. So this is the Wellness Movement, and I am your host, Julie, with Balanced Life with Julie, and you are watching Spanglish World and Her Network on Zingo TV, channel 250 and 251. Remember to download the Zingo TV app and on your app store. It's free. Leave a comment. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire and Fire Sticks, Roku and Roku Sticks on all smart TVs from 2016 forward. I have today a very special guest, a fellow wellness warrior on a mission to transform humanity into plant-based awesomeness. This is Vince Rountree, who is passionate about helping people with weight loss, diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol to reduce their dependency on medication or get them off meds completely. Yes, we can do that. How can you do that? Vince runs a business called Eat Plants and Thrive, which creates and markets programs that help people who have diabetes, obesity, heart disease, high blood pressure, and high cholesterol with plant-based nutrition. Oh my God, these people are perfect for True North, Vince. That's like a laundry list of what True North helps people with.
Well, I think that my protocol is a little less aggressive than True North is.
Well, because you let them eat.
I let people eat. Not only do I let people eat, I ask them to eat as much as they want if they're eating unprocessed plant-based foods.
Well, you know, in True North's defense, you do eventually get to eat. And some people just get to eat. They don't get to fast at all.
Oh my God, they probably leave so disappointed.
Well, yeah, there was this one gentleman who actually really, really wanted to fast and they wouldn't let him. So yeah, he left early. But yours truly did 14 days on a water fast.
Very impressive, very impressive. Yeah. So what was the worst part or most challenging part about the 14 days?
I really think it was more mental than anything, right? Okay. Like, it's interesting, like how much time we spend thinking about food, preparing food, imagining food. I did spend a lot of time like bookmarking recipes I wanted to try when I got back home, because True North is not only are they 100% plant-based, but they are SOS free, so salt, oil, sugar free. And so that's an interesting twist into the plant-based world. And I expected to have more detox symptoms, and I really didn't. I kind of cruised through 14 days. I mean, sweet. I had like rough patches here, a couple of days here and there where I was like a little bit low energy, but day 4, day 8, day 11. But other than that, like, you know, I got to day 14 and I was like, I think I could have done 21.
I'm impressed.
Yeah.
I am impressed.
There was a dude who did 40 days while I was there.
I'm sure I would wither up and like there would be nothing left of me after 40 days for sure.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. What I was telling you prior to the show, like if someone really doesn't have the body fat to get to a certain, because you have to burn through your fat stores first. That's the idea with water fasting. Like people think if you stop eating, you automatically start starving. It's like, no, your body has to burn all the fat first. Once it burns all that fat and all it's left is muscle tissue, that's when you're in starvation mode, when your body starts burning muscle. But until that point, you're okay. And I would say for most North Americans, they're okay. They got some fat stores to burn through first.
Yeah. Well, I certainly do not have a lot of fat stores. I don't know.
Someone like you, probably like a 3 to 5 day would be kind of it.
I think you're right.
Yeah. Although there was a gentleman there with lymphoma and he was very lean and he wanted to do 40 days. I don't think they're going to let him go 40 days. Yeah. But He was on day 14 or 15 when I left. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
So yeah, please do tell us, how did you stumble onto this plant-based journey?
So how did I get here? Well, in 2011, I went in for my regular physical, and the doctor says, well, you've got high cholesterol and you've got high blood pressure. And blood pressure was not high enough for medication, but the cholesterol was.
Mm-hmm.
And so I asked the doc, I said, listen, what can I do other than take these pills every day? I mean, a pill every day for the rest of my life just sounded like something I was not ready to sign up for unless there was a last resort. And so he says to me, well, it runs in your family, and that part is true. He said, so there's not much that you can do about it. And I just couldn't accept that like right off the bat. I figured there was probably something I could do to eat differently, but I didn't know what. So I came home and started looking and Google searching, how do you lower cholesterol? How do you lower blood pressure? How do you prevent heart disease? So I'm looking at all of this stuff. My undergraduate degree is in chemical engineering, so I love science, I love data, and I didn't want to just go with the fluff and the diet of the week. I was looking for data.
Mm-hmm.
Lo and behold, I stumble on a Dr. Esselstyn TED Talk. And we all know, for those of us who have not heard Dr. Esselstyn speak, he always starts off his presentations with cardiovascular disease is nothing but a toothless paper tiger that need never exist. If it does exist, it need never progress, for it is a foodborne illness.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard that, and I moved the thing back to the beginning, and I said, did this man just say heart disease is a foodborne illness? And I was blown away. I listened on the edge of my seat. And by the time he was done, I was like, I got to try this and see what happens to my cholesterol.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens.
So I have a question for you. What was your diet like and your lifestyle like at that point?
I would say I was on the healthy side of the standard American diet. I didn't do a lot of French fries. I didn't do a lot of soda. I ate a lot of chicken and I would say chicken, turkey, fish. I wasn't a big.
What's known as the good meats?
What is known as the good meats, right? I mean, I didn't really do a lot of burgers at the time. I didn't do a lot of steak. I really wasn't a big fan of steak. I mean, I was in corporate America in sales and marketing, so I certainly took customers to some very fine steakhouses. And when I was there, I would have it. So that was probably a few times a year. But my Achilles heel was I loved bacon and eggs. Now, I would certainly eat some bacon and eggs. But not a lot of French fries, certainly not a lot of candy and sodas and things. So I thought and I'm 6 feet tall. I was like 190 pounds. So I wasn't what you would call overweight. But at this time, I thought I was eating pretty well, but I wanted to try what I heard Esselstyn say. So I went all in 100%. I didn't want to contaminate my own experiment. So I didn't have a single drop of any animal-based food, not a crumb, because in my scientific background, I'm like, I don't want to contaminate my own experiment. So I went all in. And in 6 weeks.
Yeah, that's my next question. How long did you play with this for?
6 weeks. 6 weeks. And in 6 weeks, my total cholesterol went from 240 down to 132.
Whoa!
6 weeks. My blood pressure dropped 30 points. It went down to like 112 over 72 or something like that. Yeah. And I dropped 20 pounds. I went from like 190-ish to 170 something. And I couldn't believe it. I wasn't trying to lose the weight. I mean, the drop was so dramatic. When the doctor called me with the results, he said, Vince, I got your results, but you need to get retested. Why do I need to get retested? He says, well, I had you at 240, but now this is saying 132. You didn't take your pills. Even if you took them, it's not going to drop that much that quickly. So one of these tests isn't right. I said, Doc, have you ever heard of plant-based nutrition? He said, he said he had not, but clearly it was working for me. And that was the beginning for me. I had my corporate America job, and that was the beginning. Well, fast forward from 2011, when this happened, to 2014, when I was in marketing. We got a new VP of marketing that saw my job differently than what I saw it. So I decided to leave. Mm-hmm. And I interviewed looking for more corporate jobs. And after a couple of months of that, I said, I'm really not into this anyway. I want to follow my passion and help other people make the same transition that I did. Pretty stupid because I didn't have a plan. It was, pretty stupid. Been rewarding, but on the financial side, it's certainly been some struggle. Don't ever leave your job without a plan. Just let me say that. Fortunately, I had some savings. But I learned a lot along the way. And I have helped a lot of people. This thing works. It works all the time. We don't know how much it'll work for every person.
Right.
But I've never seen anybody who was overweight, ate unprocessed plant-based foods, and they didn't lose weight.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're close to your ideal weight, well, that's one thing. But if you're not within, I would say, 5, maybe 10 pounds of your ideal weight, if you're anything more than that, you will lose weight. Your blood pressure will almost always drop. Your cholesterol it always drop. Your glucose levels, if you're carrying a lot of excess weight, then your glucose may not drop as fast, but it always does drop. I've seen people have to stop taking their blood pressure meds in a few days, and just unbelievable. I mean, just really, and the diabetes thing is what really gets me, because people with diabetes are told by their doctor, once a diabetic, always a diabetic.
Yeah.
And their treatment protocol is low glycemic index foods, another way of saying like count your carbs, and we'll put you on metformin to get you started.
Yeah.
And the thing is that if you do that, it's guaranteed you will be on medication the rest of your life, guaranteed. And what's so terrifying about that is if you do that, diabetes is still the number one cause of limb amputation, number one cause of blindness, number one cause of kidney failure. And you've got a 23 times higher risk of getting a heart attack. Now that's in a country where heart disease is already the number one cause of death. So imagine now having 23 times elevated risk of heart disease. And that's if you do what they say.
Yeah.
That's where
I think the other sort of big problem right now in general is people have this perception that doctors know best. And I'm not knocking all doctors, but what most people don't realize is that most doctors don't have any nutritional training. And I actually asked, because I was at True North and, supported there by their doctors, I asked one of the guys, I said, hey, you look like you went to med school not that long ago. How many hours of nutrition training did they give you? And he said 20 hours. 20 hours. I'm a nutritionist, and I guarantee you that I've already spent thousands of hours studying. And because I'm constantly learning, and as studies come out, I'm paying attention to all the different studies that come out, I've got way more than your average doctor does. Now, there are doctors out there who want to see their patients get well, and they're curious about what are the holistic ways to make that happen. I mean, obviously, some of them find their way to True North, and some of them, go into integrative medicine and all that. So it's not like 100% of doctors don't know nutrition, but your average practicing GP, sadly, doesn't. And they're giving people advice on their health.
That's right.
It is such a broken system, and the
It is.
system is really set up to keep people on medication for life. Even in my case, like I have an autoimmune condition, and with my particular condition, the average doctor will tell you that I'm supposed to stay on meds for the rest of my life. But because of what I've been doing through nutrition and lifestyle, I've been off my meds now for over 14 months, and I'm fine.
Wow.
You know, my numbers are fine. And so I don't quite understand the investment in this current broken model where so many people are suffering. Because the other thing to always keep in mind is medication it manages your symptoms, but generally it creates other symptoms, and then you need medication to manage those symptoms. So it's just like, and you know, there are people who are on so many different meds, especially in the case of like, say, type 2 diabetes or heart disease or hypertension. They're on multiple medications, and that they're spending, you know, who knows how much money every single month on these meds. You know, if they're lucky, they have insurance and some of that is covered, but even still, it's a prison sentence, right? Because your whole life revolves around taking pills,
right,
morning, noon, and night.
Yeah, it's really sad. And if you ask the doctor, and I'm like you, I don't blame the doctors. Doctors are really smart people. They go through a lot of training. They invest probably $500,000 in education. But in all of that training, if you ask them the question, how much training have you had on using nutrition to reverse chronic disease? That amount is clearly going to be zero, right? How much training have you? And chronic disease is like 80% of the healthcare spend.
Yeah.
Right? So it's 80% of all healthcare spend. And how much training do they have on treating the cause of it, which is lifestyle? How much training do they have in treating the cause of these chronic? And that's none. Now, to your point, there's the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, and they've got a credentialing process. There's integrative medicine that's got a credentialing process. There's people like, you know, companies like the Physicians Committee for Lifestyle, Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, and they have an annual conference where they get 1,000 plus healthcare professionals from all over the world that come to learn how to incorporate plant-based nutrition into their practice. The Plant Nutrition Project, same thing. They get over 1,000 healthcare physicians that come in, as well as the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. In addition to their credentialing process, they too have an annual conference, and they get over 1,000 healthcare professionals. So there certainly is a process to help some doctors. The challenge is that in the US, there's approximately 750,000 physicians. And so the vast majority of them will not understand and embrace plant-based nutrition. And they're in a system where they don't even have enough time to sit down and explain it anyway. I mean, on average, your doctor's got 10, maybe tops 15 minutes with you. And I spend hours with my clients helping them to make the transition from standard American diet to plant-based nutrition. 15 minutes every couple of months. I mean, even if they had the training, that would be a challenge. I mean, some would do it, but that'd be a challenge.
Well, I mean, like, here's the other thing is like, I'm not blaming the doctors, but I'm questioning this system that doesn't really help people create health, right? It's called the healthcare system. And I think we've talked about this before, but it's more like the sick care system. It's the
Agreed.
sick management system, which is not the same as health. And I think the other thing is if the doctors don't have the time to work with their patients, then they need to be working with qualified nutritionists or dietitians who understand plant-based eating and can guide those people accordingly.
100%.
Otherwise, to say, okay, well, I mean, okay, fine. Maybe your average MD doesn't have the time, doesn't have the expertise. Well, there are people in the health space where specifically that's our role. That's what I help people do, is I help them transition away from the foods that are killing them slowly towards foods that are going to give them life, right? And like you, I also spend many hours with clients making sure that their questions are answered and they understand what to do. And, you know, if they go out to a restaurant, they know what to order and they know what to shop for and all that, right? So I think that's the other sort of big flaw is it's not like there's nobody out there who doesn't understand this and isn't able to help. It's that the system is so closed, right?
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
so closed. And I, you know, sometimes I really question how much the pharmaceutical companies really want anybody to get healthy.
Oh, they don't. It's not in their best interest. And you're 1,000% right that we don't have a healthcare system. We have a sick care system. The business model is fee for service, right? They provide a service, they get a fee. Well, by definition, you're only getting service if you're sick. And there is no incentive. There's no financial incentive. Now, yes, there are many doctors that really want to see you get better, but they don't have a financial incentive for you to get better, because the more you keep coming, the more revenue. That's just that is the business model. And let's face it, how many industries do you know of that are $3.5 trillion annually in one country? I mean, that's more money than the GDP of literally every country on the nation except for the top 5. That's crazy. We spend more on healthcare than the GDP of 95% of the economically developed countries in the world. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
But,
I think the thing that may really put this whole thing into a downward tailspin is, and this will happen in Canada and the US, is when the healthcare system is so expensive that it's just going to go broke.
Yes. And that's a great point, because it's not sustainable. Today, our healthcare spend, well, if you say it's $3.5 trillion, it's about 1/6 of our nation's GDP and growing. So today it's 1/6, 1/5, 1/4. I mean, at some point, it's like, it's not going to be sustainable at some point. And, you know, and so maybe at some point, the embracement of using lifestyle to treat the cause. But to your point, the pharmaceutical companies, they have zero incentive. I mean, what could be a better business model than to get you on something that you've got to take every day for the rest of your life, and you got to pay me for it?
Yeah.
What's a better business model than that? Pay me every day, like it or not. Just pay me every day.
How about 5 or 6 of those pills?
That's right. That's right. That's right. And then you take this pill, right? Just like you said earlier. Well, that causes these side effects. I got the perfect solution. Another pill. Well, that causes these side effects. I got another solution. Take this, right? And it goes on and on, right? And so that's part of what contributes to that $3 trillion.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that one of the good things about living in this day and age is there is so much information out there. And I know for myself, like when I'm putting stuff out on social media and I have people on my newsletter and I have things that are going out into cyberspace, I always put a little prayer out there that I hope that the person who needs to see this information sees it.
Yeah.
Because they're probably not getting it from other sources. And if somehow they see what I'm putting out there, they start to ask questions. You know, I have people message me, and I'm sure you have people message you as well all the time, like wanting to know more.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
I mean, it was interesting also, like when I was at True North, because there were quite a few. They have like, I think, capacity for 70 people, and so it was pretty packed.
Mhm.
And on my last day there was a woman who presented and shared her story. And when she started coming to the center, she was on she had shifted to plant-based eating for a few weeks, but previous to that, she had been on an American fast food diet, didn't know how to cook, not a young woman by any stretch of the imagination. And she was over 400 pounds when she started there.
Oh my God.
And I asked her, it's funny because like in that space, people are so open about sharing their journey and what's going on with them and their health stuff. And she had a lot of stuff going on with her, type 2 diabetes. She even had cancer at one point, and, high blood pressure, you name it. She was dealing with it. And I asked her, I said, how did you get to over 400 pounds? Like, what happened? And she said, oh yeah, fast food. I didn't know how to cook. And somehow her niece and nephew were doing this crazy hippy dippy diet that was all plant-based. And they asked her to watch Forks Over Knives. And that was how her journey started. Like, she just had someone who gifted her that opportunity to watch this documentary.
Amazing.
And I mean, I think they probably literally saved her life.
Yeah.
And her quality of life at that point, at 400 pounds, over 400 pounds, was terrible, Yeah. And now she's like, under 200. And she's done a few stints at True North. She's very committed to the lifestyle. And, like, her numbers are so much better, and most of her meds are gone, if not all of them,
Incredible.
So people think it's a miracle. It's not a miracle. It's just treating your body with some semblance of respect.
I mean, it's no different. It's no different than buying your favorite car, go to the gas station and put water in the gas tank and expect it to run well.
Yes.
Your car is not designed to run on water, right?
Yeah.
And when we eat these foods that really aren't even food, I mean, what the heck is a McDonald's hamburger, right? I mean, and I don't want to pick on McDonald's, but basically any of these fast food, it's not even food. I mean, you can eat it, but it's not providing the nutrients that your body needs.
Yeah.
And so if all you do is stop flooding your body with trash and start feeding your body the nutrients that it was designed to consume, then to your point, it'll seem like, oh my God, this is a miracle.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it'll feel that way. But all you did was eat in accordance to your anatomy. I mean, your body needs nutrients in order to thrive, and you've been starving your body of these nutrients. You've been feeding it plenty of calories, but empty calories without the nutrients that it needs. And when you give it those nutrients and stop adding fuel to the fire, then all of a sudden the fire goes out. And it's like, wow.
I mean, I think people just need to understand that the North American diet, or the Western diet, is very calorie dense and nutrient poor.
Exactly.
And so you need to flip the script on that and think of not calorie density, but nutrient density. And as soon as you start thinking of nutrient density, your calorie consumption is going to go down, because the foods that are most nutrient dense don't have tons of calories in them, right?
Exactly.
And I mean, it's just like, would you buy a Maserati and put garbage fuel in it?
You wouldn't do it.
No, nobody with a Maserati would do that. And like, You know, your body is your only home, only one shot at the deal. You can try getting replacement parts, but they generally don't work so good. And you're better off just taking care of it and treating it with the kind of care that you would treat like a Maserati or a Porsche, you know?
Exactly.
So exactly. I know. It's just interesting, right? It's marketing and advertising has so brainwashed North Americans. It's
sure has.
Very sad to see.
Sure has. The way I look at it, if you grow up in Western civilization, certainly in North America, you are crushed between two different trillion-dollar industries. The food industry will absolutely seduce you with salt, sugar, fat, put together in a combination that gives you so much pleasure. It actually hits the opiate sensors of your brain that makes you say, oh my God, I need more of that. And the food companies will invest in the most expensive scientists they can find that can create foods that have this taste, that give the brain pleasure, and you got to have more. And so that's the $1 trillion food industry. Now that makes you sick. Now you go to the $1 trillion healthcare industry that doesn't tell you the problem is the food. So we're crushed between two different $1 trillion industries. And the result is we're sicker than ever. We're sicker than ever.
I mean, it's just all about profit motive. And I do want to insert in here that healthy food, eating healthy food, plant foods, it's not boring. It's actually, I've actually never enjoyed food more than how I currently eat. And now, of course, I eat salt, oil, and sugar free, thanks to Dr. Goldhammer. And, you know, if you know how to prepare food correctly and you know how to correctly spice food, it can be way more interesting than anything you'll ever get at a fast food restaurant. McDonald's or Burger King or any of those places, they can plop $1 million in front of me. I will not take it to eat their shitty ass food. Like, won't do it. Like, and it's funny give me your thoughts on this, right? Because we're in the plant-based space, but let's face it, vegans get super excited when one of the fast food companies comes out with like some meatless alternative. I mean, I, again, don't consider it food and don't run out and try it. But what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm right there with you. But so my thoughts on that are, I get it. There are 3 different buckets of reasons why someone would go vegan. The first reason is the not doing harm to animals, right? That's the first reason. You don't do harm to animals. That's the first reason why somebody would want to go vegan. The second reason is greenhouse gases and pollution and climate, you know, what's happening to the climate, right? Because we all know that animal agriculture is the #1 cause of greenhouse gases on the planet, more than trains, planes, buses, automobiles. All transportation combined creates less greenhouse gases than animal agriculture. So that's the second reason. The third reason is health, right? Those are the 3 different reasons to go vegan. So when a fast food company comes out with a faux meat or fake meat alternative, it satisfies bucket #1. Animals don't have to die in order for you to eat. It satisfies bucket #2 because it does. You're not contributing to the greenhouse gases that animal agriculture does. But on the health side, that is not where I want you to eat from a health standpoint. Yeah. I want you to eat unprocessed plant-based foods. I want your food to look like it did when it was grown. I want you to eat fruits. I want you to eat vegetables. I want you to eat whole grains. I want you to eat legumes. I want you to eat potatoes and brown rice and beans and lentils and split peas and chickpeas. That's what I want you to eat. I don't want you to eat some made up vegan lab experiment stuff. Now,
well, I call it frankenfood, and you know, the sugar, the salt, the oil content, and whatever preservatives or additives they might be putting in there are not ideal for the human body, especially when we get into additives and preservatives and food colorings and all of that stuff. And I mean, I get it as from a transition standpoint why people utilize it, but I always like to tell I'm vegan for the animals too. I do lots of animal rights work, and
sure.
it is a regular part of my routine when I'm not in California. And so I get it, but I always try to tell my activist friends, like, imagine you have a whole army of hot, sexy vegans who are whole food, plant-based. Just imagine how many people we could turn on with that message, you know?
You're right. You're right. And even, you're right. So even vegans for the animals, which I get that, would do a whole lot more to add to their cause if they're eating unprocessed plant-based foods. And like you said, they're in the best shape of their lives. They look good. Their body looks good. Their skin looks good. And they're very healthy, as opposed to being a junk food vegan that's eating tons of fried foods and heavily processed foods that, yes, are vegan, but are also very unhealthy. You just go a lot further to advance your cause.
Yeah.
When you eat vegan in the form of unprocessed plant-based foods. So yes, by all means, that is the way to go. Even if you're vegan for the animals, because you look good. And it's like, oh man, yeah, I want to be like that person. Look at them, right? I mean, you're helping your cause when you do it the right way.
You also feel better, like you have more energy. And, you know, if it's one thing I do know about activism is it takes energy. You know, it's a long haul game, and you can't be like, you know, and you have to put up with a lot of negativity coming your way. So if you're not, you know, taking care of the temple of your body, then it can get very, very challenging to have the energy to be able to withstand all of the negativity that comes your way.
No doubt.
You know, I mean, a lot of people go, well, we don't even have equality in the human race. Why do we care about animals? And it's like, you know what? It's possible to care about more than one cause. Like, I care about equality in the human race as much as I care about the animals. I don't need to choose, you know, I have enough energy for all of it, you know?
Good point.
So you're down in Atlanta, right?
That is correct.
How is the scene down there?
In what genre?
Well, in like how are people in sort of the plant, like where I am, you know, there's pretty much no plant-based restaurants here.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I tend to cook at home. Plus I like creating recipes. And so I'm fine to do that. Obviously, when I go into Toronto, there's more options. Oakville has more options. So like, kind of, is this sort of like a newer thing, or are people open to it? I'm just curious.
Yeah, Atlanta does fairly well. I mean, Atlanta is no Southern Cal. It's not a Portland, Oregon, which is really good. Denver, I love. You know, Denver's got a lot of good plant-based. New York City, oh my God, it's got
New York, yes.
So many good vegan restaurants in New York City. So and Atlanta certainly has some decent plant-based restaurants. I mean, you can absolutely find decent places to eat in Atlanta, depending upon what part of town you live in. But there are absolutely options. There's a couple of, you know, pretty good plant-based restaurants here. So it certainly could be worse. I mean, but Atlanta is a fairly booming metropolis. I want to say the population of Atlanta is 8 million, 9 million, something like that. So it's a big enough city where there's going to be a lot, and new restaurants are opening all the time. Well, COVID, not a lot, but there certainly are new restaurants opening.
Yeah. So are you familiar with John, I want to say John Lewis?
Of course.
Badass Vegan. Are you familiar with him?
Oh, okay. You tripped me up. Because
I'm thinking of a different, I may be messing up. I just know him as Badass Vegan.
No, you're right. But you threw me off when you mentioned Atlanta first, because there is a very famous civil rights activist.
Yes, I know that one too.
Yeah. So when you said Atlanta and then John Lewis, and John Lewis passed away last year, right? And so
yes.
That's what I was thinking. But Badass, yes, I'm certainly familiar with him, because I can't wait to see his documentary. He's got a documentary coming out called, I think the name of it is They're Trying to Kill Us.
Yeah, and it's all about food deserts in America.
Yep.
So, I mean, what are your thoughts on that? What is your experience on?
Oh, it is absolutely true. I mean, I grew up in New Jersey. I've been in Atlanta since '92, but I grew up in New Jersey, and probably a 35, maybe 40-minute drive to New York City. And when you go to urban areas, there's so many areas where there just aren't any grocery stores.
Mm-hmm.
And there are these kind of corner stores and markets with different food, but they don't have a produce department, not much of one. And if you see any greens, they probably don't look good and they're ridiculously expensive. It's just, so I'm looking forward to seeing the documentary, because it's absolutely, and there's parts of Atlanta, the same thing, where there just aren't any good grocery stores in the area of low income neighborhoods. Now, in the popular suburban areas, all over the place, right? All over the place. But you get to some of the low income areas, and you could go a long way without finding, where can I just get some kale, right? Where can I get some good cantaloupe or tomatoes? And it can be tough.
So why do you think that is?
So there's always the supply demand thing, right? So that's is it a lack of demand, and that's why there's no supply, or is it more of a supply issue? And if there were supply, there would be demand.
Mm-hmm.
And that one is tough. I mean, you could make an argument of, is it intentional, or so? I don't know why that is. I think it may be a piece of several things at once. I think that there is absolutely a lack of education. What you and I do, helping people to understand the power of plant-based nutrition, I think many people don't understand that. Most people don't understand that food causes type 2 diabetes, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a foodborne illness. Most people don't know, of all income levels, most people don't know that heart disease is really caused by your food. High blood pressure, high cholesterol is straight up caused by your food. And if you ate differently, you could make it come down. So I think that it requires both education and supply. And so I don't know, somewhere I think amongst those things, and I wouldn't know how much weight to give those different elements. But I think those are probably some of the elements, probably not all.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be definitely interesting when that documentary comes out, because I'm sure that they're going to talk about how these food deserts came to be, right? Like, I'm sure when the inner cities had more, had more white folks there were probably grocery stores, right?
Yeah, and so from that standpoint, yeah, I would like to. I definitely would like to see how that breaks down and what they share on the history of that, because I don't have a feel for that, and I would like to. I'm curious to see it. Curious to see it.
Have you seen the documentary, The Invisible Vegan?
Of course.
Oh, so good.
Really well done. You know, and what I liked about that is it was one of the few stories, and they're trying to kill us will be, from a different perspective. But what I like about Invisible Vegan is it's the only story I've seen of vegan from a Black woman's perspective.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And that was so encouraging, right? Because we don't see that. I mean, and by the way, I read something that showed that veganism is growing a lot faster in Black community than it is in white community. The numbers, the percentage of Blacks that are vegan is substantially higher than whites. And what they showed in Invisible Vegan is that in Africa, certainly before, when people were captured there and brought to this country as slaves, they ate plant-based.
Yeah.
We ate plant-based. And so the fact that we eat today, what Blacks mostly eat today, we call soul food. And Milton Mills says soul food is slave food. What Blacks grew up eating were the scraps that the master didn't want and the big didn't want. So, chicken wings, legs, neck bones, these are foods that my people learned to make them delicious.
Right.
But it was thrown away. And today it's considered soul food, right? But it was slave food. That's where it came from.
Yeah. I mean, the real soul food is the soul food that they were eating in Africa.
And that is the food of life. Yeah. That is the food of life.
Yeah. So I think, yes, I saw the same stat that Black people in America are adopting veganism at a higher rate. I would say probably more than double the rate of white Americans. And it'll be interesting to see how the movement continues to progress, because I think that's really what we need is like people of color who embrace this lifestyle, because it's not just about the animals. It's not just about the planet. It's also about, human rights. We don't really have time to get into this, but, a lot of people who work in slaughterhouses, a lot of these slaughterhouses and facilities are set up in neighborhoods where it's people of color, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Absolutely. Get rid of them, then
that's right.
It's going to help many, many people.
That's right.
So we have to wrap up. How can people find you?
So please email me at vince@foodnotpills.com. Send me an email at vince@foodnotpills.com. Or you can look me up at Vince Rountree. There's no D in Rountree, at vincerountree.com. Or you can find me on Facebook. Just type in Vince Rountree and I will pop up, or you can find me on LinkedIn. Those are the best ways to find me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. This show can be heard on Spanglish Radio Network. Her network is part of Spanglish World Media. Please check out spanglishworld.ca for all news and programming. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it.